Now, guys, we just watched the Titan talk. We watched Pawn, Gilgoon, and Isaiah talk about the patch that's coming, what, Tuesday? Next Tuesday, OB15. There are some huge changes in the patch that I'm going to break down for you. Twitch chat, YouTube chat, and of course YouTube comments, because this will eventually be a YouTube video. We're going to break everything down. I had a early look at this patch and was able to give feedback and maybe tweak some things here and there. So it would be in a good spot before we can actually test it and everything. And yeah, so hopefully I think I have a pretty good understanding of why they're doing this, why it could be good or should be good, and everything. So the huge change this patch, something that's never been done before in Smite. So before I even say it, something to keep in mind is that we're in a beta, and for things that have been a problem in Smite for all of its existence, or for things that have been a long time problem, or just things that like we've never tried before, this is the perfect time to test them. Because if it ends up being bad, no matter what the change is, they could either go back on it, they could tweak it. But taking these like big shots when you're already in a beta to see if it will make the game better and more fun is exactly when you want to do it. And I think this is a great example of that. So the specific example of this problem, a long time problem that we're talking about, is healing. Smite 2 healing only got better. They're like throwing extra healing on characters because of aspects. There's a lot of healing items. There's just a lot of like hard to choose. You're already hard to kill, so healing gets a little bit more effective in that way. So it's already been a problem in Smite 2, but it's always been a problem in Smite 1. I mean, healing has always been an issue, and there's many problems with healing. When healing is good, you have to build anti-heal items, and the anti-heal items are never fun. They're never worth building. You don't want to build them because they don't actually empower you and your character that you're playing. You're building an item, just mandatory item. In Smite 1, it was 1 slot down, so then you already had your start item, so you were only able to build 4 items for yourself. In Smite 2, at least you get 1 more item slot, but still, if you build 2 anti-heal items, that's 2 item slots gone, like at least 1 mandatory item slot gone, and you're building an item that you don't even want to build. It's not fun to build. You're not actually buffing your own character, and you can't really make the item do a whole lot more because it's already nerfing or countering the enemy team and giving you a higher win rate. Like if you if you just build anti-heal against healing gods, your win rate goes up, right? So the items were never fun to build. Now, granted, it is a knowledge check. If you know that there's healing on the enemy team, noobs don't build anti-heal. That's part of the problem. They don't build anti-heal, so then healing becomes really strong in the noob levels. And then at a high level, healing is still strong, but people are building anti-heal. So the difference, there's like a huge gap there as far as like the win rate of items and stuff like that, where it's just hard to balance. So anyway, they're not fun to build. Nobody wants to build them. Nobody has ever wanted to build them. And healing is already strong, right? So what they're doing in Smite 2 with this patch is they're hard nerfing all healing in the game by about 30 to 60%, including lifesteal items, including healing from gods, healing from items, all of that. It's getting, just say a nerf about 30 to 60% off of it, right? However, anti-heal items, just straight up items that reduce anti-heals, such as your brawlers, your curse donk, your divine ruin. So they have 40% less healing when you hit them with your abilities or your autos. They're being removed. Rune and Bow is another example. You're no longer going to reduce their healing with these items. Those do not exist anymore. However, God's anti-heal, so if ability has anti-heal like a Bacchus 3, that is still going to exist. There's still going to be God anti-heal, and they're actually giving a few more Gods anti-heal as well to compensate. There are still going to be soft counter anti-heal items, which we'll get into as we go through this patch. So instead of it just reducing the enemy's healing, it maybe will give you a slight buff, give you something to buff your kit and interact with your own kit, so it actually feels good to build. It's not a mandatory item. You don't have to build this item if it doesn't make sense, but if it makes sense for your character, you feel good and you're happy building it because it's something that's actually giving you more agency in the game that you're playing. It's not just something that it's not just a quick knowledge check. Do I need to build this item for an enemy team that has healing? And if I do, like, okay, like that's not fun. Also, I forgot to mention, on the other end, it's not fun for the healer player either. You go from like having crazy healing, like if nobody has anti-heal, say you play in a game, nobody builds anti-heal, you feel like Thanos on crack, like you're doing whatever you want, you're healing for 1,000,000, you have like a full healing build with like maybe 3 lifesteal items, and you're full healing off of like 1 Anubis one. Like that's pretty fun, but it's broken. And then on the other end of the spectrum, if they just build anti-heal, you feel like your entire build has just been hard countered. You just spent 4 of your items building lifesteal, and it now no longer does anything. You just picked a character and your entire identity of this character is healing, and now, like, just because they built these 2 items that they didn't even want to build, your identity is gone. It's just not fun for either end of the spectrum. And while the one positive is it's a knowledge check, and which is good for like skill ceilings, I actually think the skill ceiling is going to go up even more because of all the items they're adding to compensate, items that you can actually build now because you don't have a mandatory item slot dedicated to just building this item that reduces healing. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So it should be more fun for the people who are healing, even though they're getting nerfed. If you think about it, in every single game right now where people are building anti-heal, you're already nerfed by 75%. At least in combat. Sometimes, you know, your out of combat healing will be stronger, of course, but at least in combat, which is the fun part of healing and like what we should be like encouraging, you're already nerfed by 75%. So if they're nerfing healing by 30 to 60% overall, it's a pretty even trade. And you're going to feel a lot better in combat because your abilities are actually going to still do stuff, and you're able to build items that give you agency as a healer because they're going to buff you in some way. Like, let's say you use a healing ability, it's going to give intelligence and strength to your teammate. That's an example of an item that we'll talk down below. But anyway, that's the overall philosophy of this, and I 100% agree with it. I 100% think this is just something worth testing because it's been such a problem for all of Smite 2. Anti-heal is not fun to build. I would much rather build other stuff, so I'm down to test it. So anyway, this is just like an overview of like their high-level goals and why they're doing it. And this should just make things feel more consistent as well. It feels really bad when you like are healing to full off of a few abilities and then all of a sudden you're not healing at all because you just suddenly stepped in. They finally got their anti-heal online and stuff like that. So this should just feel more consistent. And of course, this shouldn't be like, this isn't, if you're like getting in your mind like, oh, this is bad, everybody's just gonna be full healing because there's no anti-heal items. That's not gonna happen. Even if it were to happen on like day 1 of the patch, that's not their goal. Their goal is to not make that happen. They don't want it to be frustrating for either side of the spectrum. So their goal will be to fix that if that does happen. So don't get these knee-jerk reactions where you're like, oh my god, like everybody's gonna be full healing, or oh my god, I'm not gonna be healing at all. They're trying to make it feel good for both sides. So just relax, everybody. So what we're removing all the healing that I was talking about. You don't really, a lot of the stuff is gonna be feels based, and there's so many numbers and levers to tweak. So it's not gonna matter too much about the individual numbers. Some of it's gonna be feels based. So yeah, they're also doing it like based on like, so if it's like a low cooldown ability, they're going to nerf that even more. But if it's like a high cooldown ability, it's not going to be nerfed as much because it's not going to be healing as often, which makes sense. But the huge part of this patch, well, that was already a huge part, but the really cool part of this patch is they're adding a ton of new content. There's about 10 to 15 new items that they're adding that we're going to go over individually here. Every single one is really cool. So I'm not going to actually play it because we don't need to hear them talking. We already watched that. Just to show you real quick who's getting the anti-heal. It's right here. Sorry, this is hard. They don't. I don't know if they actually have the patch notes up, so I'm having to do it from the VOD. Thank you, Mikey. I appreciate the resub for 6 months. So the gods that are getting anti-heal are Agni on his 1, Noxious Fumes. They're doing it like thematically, which gods kind of made sense to have anti-heal on because, like I said, they're adding a few more anti-heal gods, 5 to be exact, just to compensate a little bit more since you won't be able to build it in your healing or in your items. Ares Searing Flesh, that's his 3. Fenrir, it says Seething Howl, but it's actually his 3. His Brutalize is going to have anti-heal, so not his 2, but his 3. And her 3 is Izanami 2, which is Spectral Protection, or her line clear ability, and Aspect Chalk in his 3. So regular Chalk won't have anti-heal, but if you choose Aspect Chalk, since his 3 does damage, it'll be Acid Rain. It'll anti-heal you. So those are the gods. Moving on to the items. So just as a quick compensation for Divine Ruin and Lernaean, since they're actually not getting their passives changed because they actually like how those are. They are fun items, I think. Lernaean's a fun, cool item. Divine Ruin, Chain Lightning can be fun. I guess if they buff it, and they are buffing it, 10 more intelligence and 2.5% more on the bounce arc effect of Divine, and 10 more strength on Lernaean, but a little bit of a cost increase. So those are the only 2 items that aren't getting like new content. Every other item is getting some new content. So starting off with Brawler's Beat Stick. We all know Brawler's Beat Stick. That was the name of it in Smite 1. Brawler's Beat Stick. They're removing the reduction passive, obviously, and it's now going to build from Survivor Sash and Legionnaire's Armor, so a prot item plus that 1 item that gives you strength or int based on whatever you have more of. And that's what the actual passive is going to do now. Increase the cost a little bit, but it's going to give you 20 Fizz Prots, so this is going to be a hybrid item. And a new passive, you gave 45 strength or 60 int, whichever you have more of, which is a pretty common occurrence in items now in Smite 2, which is cool. So this is just cool in general. The more that they do this, the better, because it allows you to have a lot of different, like you can build this on a magical guardian, or you can build it on a physical assassin, or maybe a ranged magical hunter. It doesn't matter. You're going to get some benefit out of it. So a lot of versatility. New passive is if you have not taken or dealt god damage in the last 5 seconds, you gain a bonus 75% of the above passive when dealing damage. So if you're the first person to hit, you get more strength or int based on whatever you have more of. If you took damage, however, you instead gain 30 Fizz Prot. So if you're the first to get attacked, you're going to get protections instead. That's where the hybrid item kicks in a little bit even more. And another soft counter to healing. If a nearby enemy uses a healing ability, you instead get both effects. So you're going to get the increased strength or int and the protections. So just a soft counter to anti. I think this item is going to be insane, by the way. And I think jungler is going to abuse this probably for some bit of a hybrid meta. But super cool item. This is an item that you're going to feel good to build. You want to build it. It's going to work well with your build depending on what you're like synergizing with, maybe with like Pridwin, Glad Shields, that kind of thing. This is an anti-heal item that I have agency and I actually want to build. And it's still a counter item. It's still a skill check because if they have healing, if I'm going to be diving an enemy Afro or Emoja and they're going to be healing near me a lot, then I'm going to be able to benefit from this passive effect. So you're still getting that knowledge check while also raising the skill ceiling and agency and fun of the game. Moving on. Contagion, they remove the healing reduction, of course. Increase the cost just a little bit. New passive, though. And this item is going to be insane as well. When enemies in hand or ability damage you, you apply 1 stack of Contagion to them once per attack. If you basic attack or apply hard crowd control into an enemy with Contagion, you consume them to deal 2% of your max health per stack in an AoE. If someone lifesteals 100 health from you, you immediately apply 5 stacks to them. So this is an anti-lifesteal item. Another soft counter to healing or lifesteal. Basically, if you're getting attacked, you're going to put stacks on them. And then if you CC them or you basic attack them, you're going to proc that. And it's going to do a bunch of AoE damage. And it can stack up. I don't know if there's an internal cooldown or a max stacks. There probably is. It just doesn't show here. Because otherwise it would be really broken if it had no max stacks or anything. You could just slam people. You just keep stacking on them, keep auto-attacking them, and they would just die to you. So I'm pretty sure there's an ICD or internal cooldown or a max stacks. But another really cool item, a soft counter to anti-heal that you're going to feel good to build. Like, you're going to want to build this. It's going to feel fun to build. And, of course, another good hybrid item. Like, definitely going to benefit from that. I guess they're not adjusting the base stats at all. Just increase the cost. So it's still going to give you, what? Like, Contagion gives you 500 HP. So that makes sense because it's going to deal damage based on your max percentage HP. So if you can send like a Sundering Axe plus this, plus some other like tank-based, like Phoenix Feather, that does it based on your max HP, I'm pretty sure. You can do a lot of damage while being pretty tanky and having a lot of healing. They're obviously reduced all of the anti-heal like tier 1s and tier 2s because they're not in the game anymore. We're not doing that. These are all, this Scythe sounds like it's Thanatos one, but we're talking about items. They're not talking about the actual god changes until Wednesday, and that's also going to have Hu Yi in it, because this is a pretty big start to the patch. A lot to go over, as you'll see. So they're going to be talking about all that stuff on Wednesday. But as far as items go, don't need to go over every individual like item here. But basically, if it has healing in it, it's getting nerfed. So an example of that is Bancroft's Talon. Instead of it having 15% lifesteal, it's going to have 7.5% lifesteal. And this just applies to all of this. So all of them are getting nerfed around 30 to 60%. But keep in mind, everything is going to be compensated in some way, whether it's an item or a god. If their healing is getting nerfed, for example, they're buffing the strength or the intelligence of Bancroft's Talon because they're nerfing the healing of it, make it more offensive. So they're compensating in some way with every single item in the game and god. Moving on to more new content. We got to go over this new content because that's the good stuff. That's the meat and potatoes of this. And there's some cool stuff in here that I'm really excited about. It's kind of a... Oh, we're on Reaper. Okay, we're good. We can go over Reaper here. Don't move on. Don't spoil yourself with Serrated. The Reaper. They removed its current passive. Its new passive. When you kill anything, you gain a stack that provides 6 strength for 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Stacks are removed 1 at a time. However, killing a god increases the max stack by 1 and restores you for 15% of the slain god's max health. Assist restores 7.5% health, but does not grant a stack. When you die, you lose a max stack, a minimum of 1. So basically what this means is you're healing based on the enemy's HP. So if you kill a tankier target, let's say like a support who's building a full health build, as an assassin, let's say you're like, I don't know, whatever you want to play, Susano jungle. If you're able to kill like a full HP build support at the beginning of a fight and you just got poked, like this is going to heal you for your HP pool because you're only going to have like 2,500 HP. They may have like 5,000. It's going to heal you for a huge chunk of your own HP. But this is more for rewarding like offensive capabilities. It's not just like a straight up frustrating thing that's going to, and it's not even going to happen that often. But yeah, so it's going to heal you and it's based on your stacks as well. So yeah, pretty cool item. Not one of my, like, it's a fine item, but there's some other ones that I'm more excited about. Serrated actually kind of staying similar, but it's being called Barbed Carver now. It's cost 2,500, 40 strength, 7.5% lifesteal. It's pretty similar to what it was before, a little different in a good way though. Enemies damaged by your abilities gain a stack of jagged wounds for 5 seconds, up to 3 stacks, once per ability per target. Your in-hands and abilities deal a bonus of 8%, and then plus 1% per 10% lifesteal. So basically, like, you can get up to 10% bonus damage, bonus physical damage for each stack of jagged wounds. So instead of just healing more, when you get these stacks on the enemy team, you're actually going to be doing more damage. So you're and it's based on how much lifesteal you have. So it's sort of buffing and making it more offensive instead of it just being more healing, which is really good. So yeah, I think a pretty decent item if you're going for a lifesteal build. Okay, one of the huge changes in this patch that I really like, Devourer's Gauntlets. Except for the second part. This is going to be a little bit sketchy, but we'll see. Anyway, they removed you don't get stacked anymore by just dealing damage. This was a change towards the end of Smite 1, made it more viable in other game modes, but made it worse for Conquest, and it removed a very important, fun minigame, I thought. And they're bringing it back. Now you gain 1 stack when killing a minion or jungle monster. Instead of getting it from dealing damage, you actually have to get the last hit on a minion, which in Smite 2 is a lot easier because you can execute minions once they get to a certain threshold. So the minigame is back, which is huge. I love this. Also, it's gained a new evolved passive called Ravenous. This item continues to stack after you reach the max stacks, which is 75, but requires 8 minion kills for an additional stack. So every 8 minion kills, you'll get another stack. Jungle bosses kills or assists count as 40 minions. You deal 15% bonus damage to minions, jungle monsters, and jungle bosses once you get it evolved. So this is going to be for PvEing. This part is a little bit sketchy, and I know there's certain gremlins who are going to try and abuse this, but we'll see. If it's too broken, they'll adjust it. It's all good. Still good new content, new minigame, or the minigame is back, rather, which I love. Increase the strength of it, increase the cost, and of course reduce the lifesteal. Again, compensating for the fact that they're reducing the healing of it, which will happen with everything. Nimble Ring and Soul Gem just getting nerfed a little bit because they have healing in their items. Don't know necessarily if they needed nerfs. Nimble Ring is pretty much only good on like Raw, Poseidon, and like maybe some niche characters here and there, but yeah. Okay, new content. Typhon's Fang. This item is crazy. We're basically getting a summon. Not basically, we're getting a summon off of an item. Typhon's Fang has been reworked into Typhon's Heart with the new effect. It costs 2,600 gold. It builds from Curse Gold. Well, you don't care about that. It gives you 40 int and 12.5% lifesteal, which is actually on the higher end of lifesteal as far as items go now. So it's still a decent healing item because it still holds that niche. But it's new passive. Every minion or jungle monster kill provides a stack. God kills provide 30. God assists provide 15. But at 30 stacks, you summon a monster of Typhon. It has 200 plus 50 health per level and deals damage equal to 300% of your lifesteal and 20% of your intelligence. So another item that's like rewarding offensive capabilities off of your lifesteal. And your lifesteal actually heals it. And if you would summon another one, in the sense that you would get to another 30 stacks, instead you fully heal your current one and you grant it 25% health, attack speed, and movement speed, stacking up to 5 times. So this can stack up to 5 times, so 125% health, attack speed, and movement speed. And keep in mind, there's another cool component of it, is it actually grows in size with its stacks as well. So you can get it to be super huge. You can get a super huge little buddy to fight with you in lane if you're building a lifesteal build. I'm going to be rushing this like first item, I think, in every game on the PTS just to test it and just to see my little buddy running around. He did say it's a Chimera. That's the character model for it. So this might be broken. Who knows? But who cares? They'll adjust it. It's such a cool idea. I love it. And I'm going to be testing it a ton. It might promoting a bit of split push. Something they could do to fix that split push idea of it is maybe make it so it only summons if you damage an enemy god. So once you get to those stacks, because it says just at 30 stacks, summon a monster of Typhon. It could say at 30 stacks, you store a summon of Typhon, and then when you damage an enemy god, you summon it. Because that way, an enemy god has to be there, so then there's no split pushing, right? You can't split push if nobody's there. Or you can't split push if somebody's there, right? You're only split pushing if nobody's there, right? So it would only summon it if a god is there. That's an easy way to fix that. Again, if anything ends up being broken or it has some niche abuse cases, it can be easily fixed. Okay, another new item. Gluttonous Grimoire? It's hard to say. I'll just call it Gluttonous. Costs 2,600 gold. This is a brand new item, by the way. 40 int, 150 health, 10% lifesteal. New passive is or passive is 25% of lifesteal healing is stored into your next basic attack that successfully damages an enemy god as bonus damage. If you are at maximum health, store 40% of the healing. The stored amount is capped at 33% of your max health. So basically, you can store up your lifesteal healing and make it do a bunch of damage on your next auto attack. So sort of like a poly, but for lifesteal. Again, rewarding offensive capabilities when it comes to building lifesteal instead of just like straight up increasing your healing. There's actually no healing in the passive. It's just storing it into doing more damage. So cool item. I like the idea. I gotta definitely test that out. Not too much of a bruiser item. It only gives you 150 HP. So we'll see who this is probably good on. I mean, maybe I could imagine maybe like Aladdin would be good with this. Who else? Maybe like Bari or something. We'll see. Next up, Sanguine Lash. Okay, if you guys are ready, if you thought Mystical Mail was crazy, here's Mystical Mail on crack, steroids, methamphetamines, Adderall, everything. Sanguine Lash. So it costs 2,800 gold, which is quite pricey for a tank item. It's going to be a bruiser item. Builds from Reinforced Axe. It's 25 Strength, 25 Fizzbot, and 10% Lifesteal. The passive is nearby enemies take 2% physical health damage every second, up to 200 max. When this damages a god, reduce the active cooldown by 5 seconds, plus 1 second for every 10% lifesteal. So again, rewarding you in a different way for having lifesteal built. Minions reduce it by 0.5 seconds, and this item's damage can trigger lifesteal. Okay, so you can actually be lifestealing off of your Mystical Mail, basically. Which you already could, by the way. But the active of this item is you lash out in an AoE burst that deals 10% physical health damage, and you can store up to 3 uses in the cooldown's 90 seconds. So you're already doing AoE damage around you by existing with like this Mystical Mail type item, and you store 3 uses, so you can do up to 30% health damage, and the cooldown's 90 seconds. And you're also reducing your active cooldown when you hit an enemy god with the passive AoE tick. Like, absolutely insane. Like, this item is going to be absolutely crazy. They might need to adjust. Like, I think some of these tank items are going to be pretty strong. We might see some abuse of that. But, again, it can be fixed. Your first instinct when you see stuff like this should be, this just seems cool and fun and new content that we get to test. If your first instinct is, wah, wah, broken, balance, wah, get a grip, grow up. New item, Daybreak Gavel. It costs 2750 gold. It's 275 health. The passive is you gain 55 strength or 75 int, depending on which stat you have higher of. They're doing that a lot. Passive, for each unique god healed by a healing ability. So we're getting into the items that are going to be benefiting healers, people who are actually wanting to build items because they have heals in their kit, like Juan, Yamoja, Afro, stuff like that. Sylvanas when he comes. For each unique god healed by a healing ability, you gain a stack up to 4. Your next ability consumes all the stacks to contribute 10% additional strength and int scaling per stack consumed, up to 40%. So you can basically buff your teammates 40% of their strength and int by just having a healing ability. So instead of just giving them more healing them more, and making things more frustrating for people, you're actually buffing them to make them more offensive. Huge. Oh, sorry, I skipped an item called Umbral Link. By the way, there's a lot of items like that are buffing the offensive capabilities. So while there are some strong tank items in this patch, there's quite a lot of items that also are going to give you more damage. Just by like having Lifesteal in your build or having stuff like that. So like, you got to keep that in mind. So it could easily balance out. But yeah, also Umbral Link, which is another tank item. 2,700 gold, which is pretty costly for a tank item. 40 Fizzbot, 10% Lifesteal. I don't think this item's going to be that good, but the passive is you split your lifesteal healing with nearby allied gods evenly. Each unique ally god heals for 10. Wait, each unique ally healed grants 10 protections for 8 seconds. This link only works while you are above 50% HP. So this could be good on supports, actually, because you're just splitting the healing with them from your lifesteal, and it's not going to be that much healing, but you are giving them a free 10 prots, and it's probably going to give it to you as well. So now you have 50 Fizz prot and 10 magical prot, but it does cost quite a bit for a support item, 2,700 gold, and you're never really going to build this solo because you're not even going to be near your allies for the most part. So don't think this item's that great, but it's a cool item. I like the idea. Daybreak Gravel is cool. We just went over that. Heartward Charm, another really cool item. Another one benefiting healers, 2650 gold, 400 HP, 250 mana, 10 cooldown rate. Passive is your healing abilities have 20% reduced cooldowns, and each cast reduces the item's active cooldown by 10 seconds. What is the active cooldown?
Your next non-ultimate healing ability will have no cooldown but deals 50% reduced damage. So it has to be a healing ability. So it has to be like Afro 3, Guan 1, Mulan 2, Yamoja 2. If it heals you, it's still a healing ability, right? It's going to do 50% reduced damage, but it's going to have no cooldown. So you're going to be able to quadruple 3 with Afro now because you have Staff of Mirrodin, you have Afro, which resets it, and now you have this word, Heartward Charm. So you're going to be able to quadruple Afro 3. You know I will be testing that. And again, just to go over the passive again real quick, you have 20% reduced cooldowns on your healing abilities. So this is only going to apply. The cooldown's only going to apply, which is a new tech in Smite 2 that is only going to apply to specific abilities. Really cool. Moving on. That was Heartward Charm. Of course, Rod of Asclepius is going to get reworked because it can't just have an item that increases healing because we're not trying to do that. So we removed Increase the Healing and removed the active removing all anti-heal. A new active on it is you send a healing snake that restores 10% of your allies' health over 10 seconds. So you're going to be able to snake your enemies, sort of like Arrow's Bow. You're going to throw a snake at them, wrap it around them. This healing counts as healing from an ability. The snake is sacrificed if the target has 6 debuffs active. So when it says it counts as healing from an ability, this is to reward you for building other items with this that work off of ability. So like, think of an item that we're about to go over. I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say Regrowth is back. So something like that is going to work off of this. The snake is sacrificed if the target has 6 debuffs active, immediately healing them for 10% health, and applies all non-damage immunities for 1 second. So you're not going to get damage immunity, but you'll get CC immunity. So you'll cleanse them and remove the debuffs, which is really cool. So this is going to reward you for timing it well on somebody who's getting like gone on and like CC'd a ton, basically. So it's a really cool item with like a skill check. It's a high skill ceiling item, and it does cost 35% mana, so you got to keep that in mind. This is a really cool item, though. Link to notes was linked on Smite Discord. Okay, no problem. I mean, we're getting through it. Breastplate of Valor, they changed it a little bit. Now, the health restore due to your own healing will also contribute to reducing your cooldown. So instead of just losing health, you're also, when you heal yourself, you'll get those cooldowns back if you cross those thresholds, so that's cool. And like I just spoiled a little bit, we're getting Regrowth back. New Regrowth Striders, 2550 gold, 50 Fizzprot, 3 mana regen, 15% cooldown. This item's going to be crazy, by the way. This is a crazy item. Passive, when you heal yourself from an ability, you gain a burst of 35% movement speed that decays to 10% over 5 seconds for 5 seconds. When you gain a movement speed buff, restore 5% of your health over 5 seconds. So basically every time you heal yourself from an ability with Regrowth, like on Herc 3, Mulan 2, I guess... Mordred 1 is a good example of that in Smite 2, since we haven't been able to test that. You're going to get a crazy burst of movement speed and also heal yourself even more. And, of course, the base prots are really nice on it as well. Insane item. Regrowth is back, baby. Another item that's back, Vital Amplifier. Another item that's supposed to reward you and give you like more offensive capability when you heal. 20% attack speed, 200 health, 3 health regen, which is an item that we need, by the way, in Smite 2, because there really are no good bruiser and auto attack items. Like Berserker's Ass. It was good for a little bit. Curse was maybe good like once, and then Shogun's has never been good in Smite 2. So those are the only 3 attack speed items that have prot stats on them. But now we have one with a little bit of HP at least, and some regen in lane. This will be a good rush item for characters like Amma. This combined with that item, that Dev Gloves, since you're going to be healing off Dev Gloves, and it's also going to do increased damage to objectives, could be a nice combo. But you get strength or int based on whatever you have more of, which is cool, more versatility. And after healing yourself, you get 10% attack speed and 5% basic attack damage for 6 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Basically the same as old Vital from Smite 1. And of course, we're reworking Amanita Charm because that was just a straight up healing item. So they nerfed that quite a bit. Now it's going to only heal you for 12% instead of 20%. But it has a new effect. You gain a stack of Spore Guard. For each stack, when you take in hand... So this means when you drop this on your teammates, they're going to gain a stack of Spore Guard. And for each stack, when you take in-hand or off-hand damage, in-hand means auto-attack damage, off-hand means ability damage. You reduce its damage by 10% and remove a stack. If it was an ultimate that dealt damage, it's going to be reduced by 5% per stack and remove all stacks. So just in case, like, it's not going to hard nerf, like, ultimate abilities that are hard to hit. And it's actually going to get a bit countered by them because it's going to remove all the stacks. But if you're getting gone on by a bunch of base abilities and a bunch of auto-attacks, this is going to reduce a lot of damage. Very good support item. I think supports are going to be building this probably every game now. Really good at keeping your teammates alive. And of course, they nerfed Arrow's Bow, Shield of the Phoenix, and Phoenix Feather because those are all items that heal you quite a bit. Although they only nerfed Shield of the Phoenix by 1%. So I think this item's still going to be really strong. Shield of the Phoenix is still going to be really meta, I think. Because 1% is not enough. And I think that's everything. And then they just went into the Q&A. So that's all the new items. 10 to 15 basically brand new items, some with effects in tech that we've never seen before in Smite. I absolutely love this patch. I think it's a huge thing to test and a really, really cool thing to test. I think some stuff might be broken, but that's fun. Like, and it will get fixed, and we can test it. We'll play it on PTS. There's going to be a flash test on Wednesday that we're definitely going to be streaming. So if you're interested in that, be ready on Wednesday with the flash test so you can play in some custom games and we can test all this stuff out. At the end of the day, this is just so much new content. This is exactly what we want in Smite 2 right now. And this is exactly what we want to test. Stuff like this that can make the game better. Healing has been such a problem in this video juega for too long. And this is exactly the type of change that could fix it and make it not only more fun for the healer players, but also for the people that want to counter them and that want to just play the game and not have to build these mandatory items that aren't fun to build, that give you no agency. This is the type of stuff that we want, okay? I promise you that. And at the end of the day, like I said, if it's unbalanced one way or the other, if healing is super broken on this next patch because they didn't nerf it enough and we don't have anti-heal to counter them from our items, they can nerf it even more because that's not what they want. The goal of this change is to make it not frustrating for the healer players and not frustrating for the people countering the healer players, okay? So if you got this thing in your mind where like, oh my God, they're just in love with healers, or oh my God, they hate healers. If you're a healer player and you think you're going to feel sad, that's not the objective. They're not going to try and make you feel sad, and they're also going to try not to make the other people feel sad, okay? But at the end of the day, at the very least, what this does is it gives you more fun. It gives you more fun because you're allowed to build items that give you agency in your own build. It is horrible. When I have to build anti-heal, anti-shield items, I have to build spectral because they have crit. Literally half of my build is gone because I just have to build these items that only counter the enemy team and they don't actually do anything for my own kit. That is not fun. The more or the less that we have to do that and the more that we can build our own items that work well with our own team. Like, let's say instead of having to build anti-heal now, I can go Singwing Lash. And because I'm playing a character that's always in the middle of a team fight, such as like Mordred, I can make a lot more better use out of that. And then I can build a bunch of HP, or I can build a bunch of Lifesteal with my build because it's going to synergize well with this because there's a bunch of items now that synergize with Lifesteal. Like, there's just so much more agency in your build and so much more theory crafting and stuff that you can do. It's exactly what we want. Okay? Okay? So yeah, and at the end of the day, if it's horrible, they can go back on it. It's just something they can test. But yeah, I think I basically went over everything that I wanted to go over, went over the philosophy, why they're doing it. Went over each item. A lot of stuff to test when it comes to the items, of course. You know, might be some abuse, some edge cases and stuff. Edge cases. Yeah, so TLDR at the end of the day, I've said that a few times now, but TLDR, healing hard nerfed, but compensated. Anti-heal taken out of the game from items, but soft counter to anti-heal, or soft counter anti-healing items are in the game that are fun to build. And a lot of items are added that buff lifesteal in some way by not straight up increasing the healing, or buff healing in some way that don't straight up increase the healing. And I think that's all good stuff. I think that's all real good stuff. Yeah, and it's also the first MOBA, yeah, like Tim says, the first MOBA you can think of trying this. I think that is true. Even like Deadlock and stuff has anti-heal items and stuff. Which, they have that exact same problem in Deadlock, by the way. The anti-heal items aren't really that fun to build, and if you don't build anti-heal against certain characters, you just straight up lose the game, which is a horrible, unfun skill check. So, it's not even a skill check, knowledge check. And at the end of the day, I've said that so many times, this is going to increase the skill ceiling, okay? Because just straight up building, just checking to see if they have healing and building a mandatory item, that is not a skill check. Being able to craft better builds with things that interact more with your own items and your own kit is much higher than just building this mandatory item right here, okay? Or, on the other side, the healers, now they can build items like Rod of Asclepius, and they have to time their Rod of Asclepius snake on their teammate once they have the debuffs on them. Or they actually have to hit it because it's a line skill shot. Or, like another example of an item. Singling Lash isn't going to take that much skill, but timing your basic attack, like making sure you have the right amount of stacks so you get the most amount of benefit from the extra damage. Like, I mean, your Typhon Fang, making sure you have the right stacks, and abusing the fact that if you lifesteal off of it, you get some extra stacks from it. And like, there's just so many examples of it. Anyway, that's basically it. I hope I was able to break it down for you. The most important part, as far as like understanding why this patch is and what it is at the beginning. And then if you want to like look at all the content, then it's obviously spaced out through the video of all the items and stuff. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. And if you ever have any questions, leave them down in the comments or come to my stream and ask me. I'll try and help. Again, I got to take a early look at this and give feedback. So we're going to test it all out on Monday and continue testing it when it comes out next Tuesday, I guess. And maybe there'll probably be another flash test this week. But yeah, stay safe and healthy as always, guys. Peace.